As humans, we've had a long history of setting aside resources to prepare for an uncertain future. There have always been certain types of items that people have used to carry value forward through time, and these items share some similar characteristics. I'd like to draw an analogy between the precious metals as concentrated, durable wealth and certain food items that should be kept on hand for their ability to preserve the caloric energy required to keep a human being alive during times of food scarcity. Let's start with the precious metals. On the left side, you'll see a pre-1965 90% silver quarter. On the right, you can see a 1/10 ounce American Gold Eagle. Both are exceptionally good stores of value because they are durable, desirable, and very compact. The silver content of the quarter shown on the left has historically purchased 1 gallon of gas. In other words, the quarter would have bought you a gallon of gas on the issue date of the quarter, and today it will still buy you a gallon of gas. The gold content of the 10th ounce Gold Eagle on the right has historically been enough to purchase a full barrel of oil. So it's easy to see that although both metals are a very concentrated and durable form of wealth, gold is much more compact. Now let's put gold and silver on the same purchasing power basis. Historically, a tenth of an ounce of gold has had the same purchasing power as about 5 ounces of silver. Now the value of silver has been very volatile relative to gold. Sometimes it only took about an ounce and a half of silver to equal the purchasing power of a 10th ounce of gold. Sometimes it would take a full 10 ounces of silver to have the same purchasing power. But over the last 50 years, it has taken about 5 ounces of silver to buy the equivalent to a tenth of an ounce of gold. So for the sake of comparing the compactness of the two, I'll use the 50-year average. Besides, the ratio right now stands at about 60 to 1, and so using the historic average will give us a fairly good idea of how the two compare using today's purchasing power of the two metals. On the left, we see $10 face value of pre-1965 quarters. This is 40 quarters, which when they were minted contained about 7 ounces of silver. Now that they're worn, they contain a little less than 7. The content is probably more than 5, but I'm just being approximate here to demonstrate the difference in wealth compactness. Now I like silver, so don't get me wrong, but the current difference in bulk presents the saver with a bit of a dilemma. Silver presents a great call option on wealth because the gold to silver ratio may move in silver's favor. But if the ratio stays more or less near the 50-year average, then it will take much more space to store the same quantity of purchasing power. This is demonstrated by comparing the silver coins on the left to the gold coin on the right. Both have roughly the same purchasing power currently, but the gold is much more compact. Let's put this into perspective for someone saving for retirement. Let's assume that you're the typical head of a household and you would like to save up enough money to have a comfortable 15-year retirement. You assume that you will need about $500,000 of current purchasing power to supplement Social Security. If Social Security still exists when you turn 67, that is. This will be about 400 troy ounces of gold, or about 28 pounds. Gold is incredibly dense, and so this weight of gold will fit into a space that is about 40 cubic inches in volume. A cube that is 3.5 inches is adequate space to store all of this gold. Now try to visualize this. Get a ruler out and measure 3.5 inches. Now picture a box that is this big on each side. That's enough space to store $500,000 worth of purchasing power. Now that's what I call concentrated wealth. Silver is about half as dense as gold, and so at a 50 to 1 value ratio, you'd need about 100 times this space to store $500,000 worth of purchasing power, and it would weigh about 1,400 pounds. Now that's still very impressive in terms of concentrated wealth storage, but you won't be able to easily transport it from one location to another quickly if you needed to. That's a pretty big disadvantage, and the primary reason why I favor gold to silver, at least for savings purposes. Now most people who watch my channel, because they are concerned about the stability of the monetary system, are probably also very concerned about possible interruptions in the food supply in the event of a currency crisis. So I'd be surprised if you personally aren't keeping a reasonable store of food on hand. If you're not, then I'd suggest you consider doing so. Now, it's interesting to observe that the same properties that make gold and silver great items for storing wealth, when applied to food items, can give us clues as to practical ways of storing food for the sake of preparedness. Here, you will see a spread of food items that have the same caloric value. In the upper left, you will see 4 small bell peppers. These peppers have about 125 calories of nutrient value, just like the apple in the upper right-hand corner. If you're the average person, then you would need to consume about 80 bell peppers a day or 20 apples a day to supply your needs for energy. So you can see that fruits and vegetables are not very concentrated sources of calories. Maybe that's why dieters love them so much. In addition to being bulky, these items also have a very short shelf life, and so they are terrible items to save for a crisis. Hey, they're just like Federal Reserve notes that way. Compare the vegetables and fruits, with a 1/4 cup of dried beans shown in the middle and the tablespoon of olive oil in the lower right. All of them have the same calorie content, but the beans, and especially the olive oil, are much more compact. Another aspect of the beans and the oil is that they have an extremely long shelf life. If stored properly, they can last for years. So, if we want to draw an analogy, dried beans and olive oil are like the silver and gold of the food prep world. Now there are other items that have similar properties to the dried beans and the olive oil. These include items like rice, nuts, nut butters, canned meats, and other oils like coconut oil. I mention coconut oil specifically because, like olive oil, it does not oxidize or polymerize easily, and thus it has a much longer shelf life than typical vegetable oils. And there are many other items, but I can't show a full spread here. I just wanted to use this as an example. So a person stocking up for a potential disruption in the food supply should keep these properties in mind when stocking up. Look for items that are very calorie dense and have a very long shelf life. Between canned meats, dried beans, rice, certain oils, you can keep yourself quite healthy for several months. Just to drive the message home, let's consider a jug of olive oil that you can buy at the food store for the same price as an ounce of silver. This jug has about enough calories in it to sustain the average person for 10 days. Oils like this are often overlooked by people who store food in case of an emergency, but they are about the densest, cheapest, and most durable source of calories you'll be able to find. Olive oil I consider to be the gold standard of the food prep world. Now, I'm not suggesting that you would subsist on olive oil for months. No, after doing that, you'd probably get pretty sick and start wishing for death. Instead, I'm suggesting that it is a great way to stretch out a food supply. A couple of tablespoons poured over a small meal can increase the calorie content of the meal significantly. This will stretch out the life of your remaining food stores. In addition, because it's a fat, it will naturally satisfy your appetite and minimize hunger levels. As a side benefit, it's damn tasty. Well, anyway, that's enough for this video. I just thought it would be interesting to share with you my concept of concentrated wealth and give you some ideas for how to apply it to food preparedness strategies. I'd welcome your thoughts, so please feel free to comment.